Imagine this. A single speech shaking the pillars of world power. September 25, 2025. Inside the United Nations. Headquarters in New York. The 80th session of the General Assembly was underway. Everything looked normal, but behind the curtains, one address was so explosive that even the UN itself tried to hide it. On stage was Burkina Faso's young president, Ibrahim Traoré. In his hands, a 12-page confession drafted by Paris, Washington, and Tel Aviv. Its purpose to force him into submission. The hall held its breath. Would he bow or would he rise to defend Africa's dignity? Sometimes one voice is enough to shatter the silence of nations. As Traoré began, his voice did not tremble. It grew stronger. His first accusation, the crime of the transatlantic slave trade. Over 12 million Africans were ripped from their homes, chained and sold across the ocean. The empires of cotton, sugar, and coffee were built on our blood, he thundered. This is not distant history. It is the very foundation of Western wealth. Freedom was given, but the chains never broke. His second charge, financial slavery. 14 African nations are still forced to deposit half of their reserves in France's treasury. Since 1960, over $500 billion withheld. Is this freedom, he asked, or just another chain? And then, a wound the world tried to ignore. The third crime, the Rwandan genocide. 800,000 lives lost in 100 days, and yet France shielded the killers. The hall grew heavier with silence. Do you realize poverty doesn't always kill by hunger, but by policy? The fourth crime, IMF debt traps. Structural reforms cut health and education. In Zambia, nearly 40% of the health budget vanished. Children died, not from disease, but from the price of medicine. When farmers collapse and corporations rise, what justice is this? The fifth crime, the destruction of African agriculture. Ghana's cocoa farmers went bankrupt, while companies like Nestlé and Cargill made billions. But the story wasn't over yet. The sixth crime, assassinations of African leaders. Patrice Lumumba in 1961, Thomas Sankara in 1987. Both silenced because they spoke of dignity. Think of this. People begged for bread but were handed guns. The seventh crime, Cold War interference. Dictators like Mobutu in Zaire were armed while their people starved. When oil flows but prosperity never arrives. The eighth crime, plundering Nigeria's oil. Western companies grew rich while rivers turned toxic, and 30 million. Nigerians were left with poisoned soil and a life expectancy of barely 50 years. They call them bases of security, but security for whom? The ninth crime, foreign military bases. The U.S. runs 29 installations in Africa. France still occupies Djibouti. Every base, Traore declared, is another chain on our sovereignty. And finally, even human rights became a weapon. The 10th crime, Western double standards. Zimbabwe, Sudan, Mali are condemned, but Chad and Gabon, regimes serving Western interests, are spared. This was no longer a speech. It had become a trial. The hall turned into a courtroom. The West stood accused. Traore named names. Macron, he said, is not just a president, but the heir of colonizers. Trump, he declared, turned trade and oil into bargaining chips paid with the blood of nations. To the IMF, he roared, "You wear the mask of development, but you are wardens of a financial prison." Then came the declaration that shook the world. "We do not beg. We demand justice," he proclaimed. Invoking the spirit of Thomas Sankara, Traore announced a vision of a united Africa, free from debt, free from foreign bases, free from theft. Sometimes a single sentence becomes a generation's anthem. The UN suppressed his speech from official records, but within hours, the transcript leaked online. From Nairobi to Lagos, Johannesburg to Dakar, hashtags exploded. "We ask for no pity. We demand justice." African youth in Paris, London, New York carried placards. Traore speaks for us. The world thought this speech would break him. Instead, it made him. What was meant as a confession of defeat became an indictment of empire. Ibrahim Traoré was no longer just a president. He was a symbol of defiance. His image holding the file of Western crimes went viral, compared to Mandela raising his fist or Nkrumah declaring independence. Remember this: freedom is never asked for, and it is claimed. His closing words still echo. We did not ask permission to be free. We stood up to claim it, and today, Those words live on in every heart that refuses to kneel.